Okay, here's the recording button. Okay. So welcome all. This is 80th BC Open Discussion, and today we are continuing what we are doing from last 2-3 weeks. Is what's new in the BC 20 release. Before we start, I actually wanted to maybe correct something which I said last time about telemetry. That I don't know how many people are using it because I haven't experienced using it. But then later that night or next day, I did upload that video on YouTube, and Kenny from Microsoft did reply. And the reply is, and if you go on YouTube, you can read it. It says that regarding the use of telemetry with Business Central partners specifically, 40% of production, SaaS production environment have enabled telemetry. So there are actual partners who are using telemetry. And 60% of apps which are available on app stores, which means app that you build for the community, are have telemetry enabled. So yeah, I am neither on the app world and neither I have, I guess, much experience with telemetry. But Kenny, who is kind of manages most of the telemetry things in Business Central space, and you would have seen him in most of the videos talking about telemetry. I put this comment. So sorry, Kenny, if you are watching this now or listening to this recording later. I had very minimal experience about it, and I should have checked the facts before said anything about it. But no worries. Uh, if you haven't explored it, I guess this is an area that I'll also explore of users of telemetry with Business Central. Okay, so that was a correction from what I said last week. So let's go through the normal. This is where you go to register if you're not a default attendee. This page gets updated either tonight or most probably by Sunday evening India time. And there's a link to register that gets updated. So continuation of whatever was left in our discussions, and I'm hoping that everybody started watching the release launch event videos which are available for everyone. And if you don't know about it, I guess you can go to AKMS see, and then it is PC launch event, I guess. This time, for the what we call that, the keynote was not available later on, and I had a client meeting, so I cannot attend. I was not able to attend the keynote, and I don't know why, but that is not available. So if you haven't registered, this is the link that you need to go to, which is AKMS/BC launch event, BCLE, and there is everything that's available in Business Central 20 or will be available in the next cumulative updates, because there are some things which you will listen in these videos which are not available in the product as of this moment, but they will be available. And I have watched 5 or 6 of them, and they're pretty cool. So if you are interested in going into details about it, I would recommend going in and registering on aka.msbcle. And then you just need to fill in your details here. And once you submit it, you get an email with all these recorded events that you can watch. I'm not a huge fan, but this time Microsoft have given a feature to kind of download those videos if you prefer that. And I don't prefer it because I would rather watch it than download it, because that way I'll not get stuck with situations. So you get an email something like this, where there are all the links grouped, and then you can plan how you want to watch it and when you want to watch it. So these will only be available till June 31st. So there is an end date to it. So don't just register and then just keep it on your inbox, but do watch them if you are registering because there is an end date. Any questions on this? Or anybody or somebody have registered it or not? Okay. So let's move and continue about our discussions. So the first one that we are going to talk about in what's new in Business Central 20 is about block, VAT, and general posting setup. Now, those who are working directly with customer may understand it better than me for sure as a developer. But with Business Central, there are some changes on the posting setup and specifically on VAT and general posting setup, where Microsoft have added a Boolean of blocking. And the reason being that if you have a general posting setup in place, you can't delete an entry if there are transactions which are using those, like if there are open sales order or purchase documents and things like that, then you cannot delete these in the system. But if you would like to change it and don't somehow want to restrict your user to not use that setting or that combination, then you can now block these two kind of setups, and whenever somebody uses it, they will get an error message saying that it is blocked. Now there's something else which I haven't tested on the same thing, which is that you get a notification if the GL account on the posting groups and posting setups are missing, specifically on VAT and general posting setup, and that you can enable from my notification. So let's give it a try. So the first thing is, let's go into my settings and notifications, and let's see where that is. Okay, there's so many of those, so let me see. Posting. Yes, GL account is missing in posting group or setup. Oh, that's enabled by default on my account. Let's see. So let's go into my posting. Posting setup. The new value that we are talking about, or the new boolean, is this, the block. So let's try to do this. It says GL account is missing, so let's try to remove the okay, sales account from here, and let's see what happens. Domestic and no tax. Okay, I'll have to find one with domestic and an item with no tax. So let's do that. Let's posting group. Okay. Is domestic. Yes, let's see. Who's the customer? All the customers are domestic. Okay, that's good. Let's pick an item and let's try to filter this by general product posting. Come on. It's going a little bit slow. Maybe I was doing something else. That's taking so long. Okay. So the idea is that there should be a warning when I'm creating a document, and at the same time, we'll also see the blocking one. Again, list. Okay. Journal product posting group is no tax. Oh, there's none. Maybe I'll have to change one with no tax. Okay. Let's pick a random item. Okay, on off flight. Okay. And let's change it to no tax just for the demo. Okay. Now let's create a sales order because that's where we have removed the account from. Customer, that should be okay. And here, if I choose that item, here you get a message or a notification on top of your screen that while you're trying to do a sales order, there is the account is missing where the entry should go, right? But because there is a sales credit memo account, which is already set, I guess, over there. So let's look at that. How does that impact? And does it pop up again? What is this? It does. You can change it here also, which is cool. You don't have to kind of navigate, but sales credit memo account is there. So let's see, is that notification is that smart that if I create a credit memo, does that pick the right account and says the credit memo account is there, so I don't worry. No. So only sales account. Do I need, and maybe that's my limited knowledge, do I need the sales account when I'm doing a credit memo? Anyone knows?
I think you do, because it would be reversing the account while the sales invoice has been posted. I think you do, yes.
Okay.
It's like applying entry against the
Right.
sales
Oh,
account.
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. So now let's test out the another thing. One we have checked. What happens if I block this? Because I cannot delete it because there are some transaction. I hope so. If I try to delete this one, it should. Oh, it's gone. That's weird. It should not have. Okay. Let me block this and let me do. Okay. Let's assume this is the setup that we have blocked, which is domestic and no tax, and we have set it to block. In this case, if you try to go to this that sales order that we have created, and you're using that combination here. Oh man, what's happening here? And that during posting, it will end up with an error message saying that this account is blocked and you can't use this account. So in a situation where you are planning to change those setups and you still have open documents available with the old one, you can just turn it blocked for a while so that users who will be posting those will get that error message that they cannot use this while they are trying to post this. So here you get an error like this, which is setup is blocked for the bill posting group and the business posting group and the product posting group. And then it's an error message window. You can see what it is talking about. It's blocked here, so that's why you can't use it. So that enhancement helps you while you're changing your posting accounts, posting setups, and only as of now limited to general posting setup and VAT or tax posting setup. So like it's not available into the inventory posting setup for that matter. Okay, any questions, thoughts on this before we move to the next one? Okay.
No. Yeah.
So the next one that we have is 2-digit year evaluates to 1950 to 2049. Now people who haven't used Business Central SaaS will not know about this problem, But till previous release, what used to happen is whenever you used a 2-digit sequence, the system was trying to take this setting from the client machine. And based on this setting, the calendar setting on the Windows machine, it was converting that 2-digit to the correct or incorrect year based on whatever is said here. So in this release, what Microsoft have done is anytime that you enter a 2-digit number in your year field or year part of your date, it will automatically evaluate itself from 1950 to 2049. As I said earlier, before this or till BC19 in SAS, the default behavior was based on the Windows setting, which can vary, based on what operating system you are in or what version of Windows you are in or what custom settings you have set on your date settings. This change only impacts Business Central SAS. For Business Central on-premise, there is a server setting on the service tier, which is calendar 2-digit year max. So the minimum you can't change, which will be 1950 all the time. But for the max, you can set it on your service tier, or if you don't set it, I'm hoping it will still take it from this setting on the user machine to kind of evaluate what need to be changed. So that's one small, but people who were kind of have faced this problem, for them a big change in the product. Okay, now this year there are multiple changes around permissions, and this seems a good focus of Microsoft on permission from last 2-3 releases, at least on the SaaS as well as on prem. Going forward, it'll be mandatory. But if you start thinking about what all have changed from permission, so the first big change that came in Business Central 17, I guess, if I'm not wrong, Microsoft have decided to not to have permission as data, but permission as an object. And I think we talked about it, but if you guys don't remember it, I can show you it again. Do you guys know that? About the permission as data versus permission as object.
Yes, I do, but it doesn't hurt to do it again.
Sorry?
I do
Oh, it
remember
doesn't
it.
hurt. Okay.
Later, go on.
So till nav or Business Central, initial versions of Business Central, if you remember behind the scene, to have permission, there used to be these table called permission set and permission, and at the same time there used to be in the later versions like Business Central 13 and 14, where Microsoft introduced something called as tenant permission and tenant permission sets. The idea back then on Business Central 14 and 13 was that users will not be able to modify the permission data itself that came from Microsoft. They are allowed to add new permission set and define permissions for their users, but they are not allowed to change Microsoft permissions. I hope that's clear, right? And any permission that came from extension was used to be stored in a table called tenant permission set, and the base permission were stored in two tables, which was permission and permission set. That was the design for a while. Then in Business Central 17, what Microsoft said, that it's very hard to store the data as in permission as data because it makes no sense. And the reason being very simple is because when the objects get removed from your environment or from your extension, because permission is as data, that doesn't get impacted from it. They remain as it is. And people who are working on nav for a very long time would have seen legacy objects in permission where there are no names, and it was very hard to manage it. So what Microsoft did in Business Central 17 is they changed, at least for SaaS as well as for on-prem. On-prem it's still optional. That's optional till next release. But on SaaS, if now or on your Docker environment, if you run your permission set table from SQL, you'll see only one permission inside that called super. And when you run your permissions table, you will see only permissions for super, which is all, right? There are no other permissions which are available in permission or permission set tables. And this is my sandbox, oh sorry, this is my Docker environment, which we were looking at right now. So now what I'll do is I'll go back into my environment, which is the same environment. But if I go into my permission set page, there are all Microsoft permissions which are available there, all these. Because now they don't come as data. They are not data driven. They are part of your app. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So here is the extension name from where this particular permission is coming from. Like this one is coming from this Contoso coffee demo data set. This one is a base application. This one is a system application, and so on and so forth, right? When you deploy your extension, that will come from a application, a extension. User can still create user-defined permission by clicking on new and creating their own permissions. That will store as data into tenant permission set table. So from where these are coming from is, I guess we've talked about it, but as Sam said, it doesn't harm to kind of look at it again. So what I'll do is I'll go into my Docker folder where it kind of extracts itself. Here it is. So you can go on this folder or on your product DVD folder from version 17 and higher. When you go into this folder and go into extension, you will see two extensions, which is okay, where is the permission one? Permission, Microsoft permission. Okay. But at the same time, these permissions are the consolidated permission, but the actual permissions resides inside every app. So like if you look at the base application and if you open it with code, the base app, what you'll notice as here, there are some objects. Let me see, which are of type dot permission. Microsoft created a new object of type permission, and that makes it easier for Microsoft to kind of have that as extension. The cool part is that it will come and go with extension. When you install an extension, it will come from there, and when you uninstall an extension, it will be removed. And maybe this is not the right place. I should have shown you an easy one. So let me go back. Okay. Applications. Let's pick up the system app. That's the app that I like most. If you open or extract the source here, it'll give you the whole source code that's there. And here you will see how Microsoft have organized it in the system application. Inside this, you can pick any app. These all are kind of different app from Microsoft perspective, but they are put in one. But inside this, you will find a folder called permission, which will have permission which is required to run this particular app. So all the objects which are part of this set are in this permission set. So whenever you publish the system app on your environment, all these apps which are part of system app club together, these objects will also get published, which are permission object. So there are two things, two benefits of it. One, as soon as you change your object or remove an object from your extension, your app will not compile until unless you clean up that permission. because it's referring to an object which is part of this app, like this code unit. So for some reason, if I thought let's delete this, it will also affect my permission, that it will start erroring out that that table or that code unit I don't find. Let me do a control Z and bring it back. The second benefit is that while you are creating your own permission set, you can also, instead of writing all permissions here, you can define that this permission already includes an existing permission. So you are saying that there is a base Microsoft permission. I don't want to repeat everything which is there, but I want all the permission in that permission set included in my new permission set. So you can just do this. So what happens with that is there are two kind of permission that get assigned. One is a child permission that you cannot assign, which will be part of a bigger permission set. And then there are parent permission set. And that is defined based on this property called assignable. Assignable means this permission set will not be assigned to a user, cannot be assigned to a user, because this will be a part of a bigger permission set. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Like you create a permission for your customer card, just to take an example, for customer card edit. Now, while creating those permission, you created three permission that, okay, there's a permission set who just deals with basic information on customer card. There's other permission which deals with uh, like changing posting groups and setups. And then there is a third. So now you can use these three unassignable permission to be a part of a bigger customer edit permission, and then decide which one actually goes into customer edit and which one is not. Maybe which one goes to normal user customer edit and one goes to administrator custom edit. And that's where the assignable comes into picture.
So they would come into include permission sets as well into
Yes.
different permission.
Yes, but they cannot be directly assigned to a user.
Would they
So
be visible in Central?
I doubt that this one will be visible in Business Center, because
Okay.
these are child ones, but they will be part of the behind the scene things. So let me see. Name. No, I can't see this, but it is part of a bigger permission set, and that's what you can see here. So that was the one major change that Microsoft did back last year, about storing permission instead of data as an object. Now, the thing that we need to remember, especially for customers and partners who have customers on-prem, that this is an option right now for on-prem to enable or disable that switch on-prem on your service tier. But starting Business Central 21, if I'm not wrong, Microsoft is going to deprecate the way to store permission as data, and you will always have to store permission as object. User can still create them, as I said earlier, but that's kind of controlled right now till Business Central 21 on your service tier, and I'm trying to find that here. Okay, where is that? By default, it is set to true, but here it is. Use permission sets from extension, which means it doesn't use the data that's behind the scene. It only takes permissions from the extension that is coming forward. So keep this in mind. This is a Business Center 20 is the last release where this option exists. This will go away in the next release. So if you haven't started working on permissions as extension, you should, but you need to remember that you should only add permission in your extension uh, which are specific to your extension, plus they will user will not be able to modify them. That's the other very important thing. Any permission that comes from an extension, either Microsoft extension or an ISV extension or your extension, user will not be able to modify it. You'll get a message here, and this will not allow you to edit. But if they create a custom permission, they're allowed to modify it. So think about it. It's a you know it's a very common thing that how you want to tackle that. For customer environments, try to convert them into this. For your extensions, earlier you used to have this XML file. That file will not be allowed to be published in your extension going forward. You'll have to convert them into objects. That's something which Microsoft did back in Business Central 17. But let's come to this release and let's talk about it. So what they did is they gave a little bit more power to developers to have inherent permission in the object itself. So while you are writing your code, if you think that this method will require some kind of permission, you can add the inherent permission on top of your method. When you do that, that doesn't add that permission to that user, but that just gives that permission to that user while that method is being ran. In this example, as you can see, that there's a method called get default work date, which somehow needs a GL entry read permission based on whatever that developer have written here inside this. If the user will not have permission for this, the user will end up getting an error message, and then somebody as a power user or a system administrator or a consultant will go and add the permission of GL entry read. And it's frustrating for that matter sometimes. But going forward as a developer, you can inherit permission and write it on the top of your method, and it will be used while that method is being called. As the method execution completes, that permission will be revoked from that user. Now there are some gotchas at this point on this, so let's see those and then we'll move ahead. So right now what happens is if I create a code unit, inside that I'm writing a procedure. At this point, I can define that, oh, in this method, I'll be maybe reading something from, let's say, GL entry or from customer ledger entry, whatever that is. On top of it, you can do a inherit permission. And then inside that, there is a specific type, which is the permission object type. Now, this is a new enum created by Microsoft, where all the objects are available that can be assigned. So you can define, let's say, I need the permission for table data, which means the access to the data. The second is what is the object ID. So I can say that it's a table. So let's do database, customer, or cust ledger entry. And then the last is the permission in the text format. If I want to give a read, that'll be R. If I want to give an insert, that'll be I. Modify will be M, and if I want to give it delete, that'll be D. Small case means indirect permission, and big case means direct permission. This is the pattern. If you are doing an object, like if you are doing, let me comment this and write the other one. If I'm doing an object, let's say permission object type, let's say report, and then report equals, let's say account schedule, then the permission that I want is just the execute, because you don't have read, insert, or modify on it other than the table data, right? And that goes with the X or X. Again, X indirect and X direct. That's how you do it. But if you notice, when I wrote this line, either this line or the above line, it have an error, which means that there is some problem. And the problem says that inherit permission as of today have a scope of on-prem, which I don't understand why Microsoft will kind of release something like this, because at the same time we know that the target on-prem is violates the universal code initiative. So we need to remember that just to use this feature, don't enable this. But right now it looks like that. The second thing is this, that you cannot refer to an object which is not part of your extension. Now that's something which I don't like, because 90% of the developers that we do as our work is somehow utilize the base Microsoft app. So at least this should have been changed to refer to an object which this extension depends on. Okay, if this extension depends on an ISV, because I'm trying to modify an ISV, then I should be allowed to use an object from that ISV also. Now, when you look at the Microsoft video, they say that the on-prem thing will be fixed in the minor cumulative update somewhere in future, because they are working on it, they're testing it out. So that's why they are limiting it to on-prem and test out it. And we also need to understand that only Microsoft can use on-prem without violating the non-universal code initiative. So they can still use it in cloud, partners cannot. At the same time, if I remember what I heard in the recording, is they are also planning to increase the scope of not just using the objects from your extension, and also defining what you can use, because this way it doesn't actually matter if I'm not an ISV, because ISVs do things where they will need the indirect or inherit permissions. So if it is not allows me to have a reference of an object which is part of a dependent app, I don't think will be able to utilize it in the full power that I think we should be able to somehow. Because right now it can only refer to an object that I create here. So if I have a table, 100, and let's say my table. And then if I come here and do it as my table, that's fixed. But then that's limiting what I can do in the Microsoft space. And maybe there are security reasons which I'm unaware about, but that's how it works. As of this moment, you need to have only use it on target on-prem apps, which I don't recommend. Don't use it till the point it changes, maybe in a cumulative update in future. But I don't know how this will be changed, because if this doesn't change, there is very limited use that I can use this inherit permission approach. Thoughts, questions? Okay. So maybe this is something that we'll have to discuss further once kind of it fixed. The other thing is also about permissions, because there is so much changing on that. As of today, at least on SaaS, whenever we set up a new customer and they have users, we do need D365 basic on all the users, because that's the minimum that's needed for a user to access Business Center. What Microsoft started doing is trying to detangle this big D365 basic permission set into more logical permission sets. From the sessions what I heard, as of today, that there is a new permission set called login, which is available in Business Central 20 as a part of the base app or the system app. And that's kind of extracting the minimum permissions that are needed to log in into the Business Central from the D365 Basic. Going forward, the plan is to kind of break D365 Basic into more logical pieces. Like, oh, this user logs in, but because he's an administrator, he also need to initialize the company that has been created. So all these will be extracted slowly and slowly, and the plan is to remove D365 Basic going forward. So if you have customers on SaaS and they are implementing Business Central, instead of giving them D365 Basic, you should start using the permission set called login. That was login, I guess. Yes. Did I mistyped it somehow? Or am I not on the right one? Login. Here it is. This is the minimum permission set that every user will need to log in into Business Central. So instead of giving the 365 Basic, we should start shifting toward this permission set, which gives the minimum permissions that are needed to open a Business Central environment and then decide whatever they need. Okay. So we are also like us who are giving the 365 Basic to every user when they kind of get into Business Central environment. You just start shifting it to the login permissions. Okay, that's about it. And let's move to something which is a little bit tricky, but I haven't tested it, but I've read about it a pretty good amount of things, which is something called as isolated events. So if you remember logically, when Microsoft released events for the first time, they kind of grouped it into two major categories. One were the business events and one was integration event. And the only difference between business event and the integration event in the past was that business event comes up with a guarantee that they will not be changed in future releases. And I'm talking about events, which Microsoft, ISVs, or you are providing so that your app is extensible. So those were the two kind of events. Business event, which came with a warranty that it will never change in future, and integration event does not come with a warranty. That means there is a chance that this event will change in future releases. I haven't checked recently, but till last 4 releases ago, there was no business event even from Microsoft. So that means all events were kind of tagged as, or there were, I guess, but others were integration. So we'll understand that. What Microsoft have done with the isolated event is they have added one more boolean in the signature. So your subscriber doesn't change anywhere. But when Microsoft defines those events, or if you are writing a new event for your app, then you can have a new boolean which tags it that it's an isolated event. Now, how it is different from a normal event? In a normal event, if there are 12 subscribers, they all will be called sequentially. And if any of them errors out, the call fails at those situations. The main event kind of stops the execution and nothing happens after that. And then in Business Central, there are some tricky situations like on a company open situation. If you have subscribed to Microsoft on company event, and you write something which errors out in such a situation, then user will not be able to log into your Business Central environment or will not be able to open the company because your subscriber is generating an error message. So with the isolated event, the idea is that each subscriber is executed either there is an error or not. It will execute all the subscribers. It will not error out if any subscriber fail. So the errors that are generated, maybe out of 12, if 3 are generating error, they are kind of trapped, and after the execution is completed, those errors will be visible. And that's only needed in a situation where it kind of stops user from accessing anything. So the one isolated event that Microsoft have added right now is on the on company open completed event. So let's quickly have a look on that. I guess it's in the system events. I guess company triggers. I think
It's actually 2,000,000,003. Yeah.
yes. So the event that we were talking about, and I forgot, is on company open completed. Yes. If you see on this one, the second parameter is set to true, which makes it as a isolated event, and this differs from these event because these are just the business event with one parameter, and if you add the second parameter here like this, so if now you have subscribed to this event and there are 5 subscribers to this, and one of them have an error, that error will not stop the execution of the situation like company open because it's an isolated event. It will record or trap that error, and at the end of the execution, when the user logs in, he will show you that error message.
Well, they've set this to isolated event because it's actually used during sign-in. So if there's a problem, the user will definitely be stopped from signing in.
Is that how you read it or listen to it? I was a little bit confused because if every subscriber is executed, because right now, if let's say the first subscriber have an error message, that stops there, right?
Yeah.
Because it says errors are trapped and then the execution continues. So it doesn't pop up that error, it traps that error into this error window. And then, and maybe I'll have to test it out. Well, let's test it out. Yeah, why not? Let's clarify this doubt before we make any. Okay. So instead of this, and because I have a sandbox, I should not be using on-prem target. Okay. Let's come back here and let's do 80 event subscriber.
I've got a Microsoft official documentation on this.
Okay.
And they're specifically, I just pasted the link in the chat. They're specifically mentioning the on company open completed trigger event rather.
Okay. New isolated event on company open completed. This event is raised after sign in and company open have completed. Any subscriber to this event can fail, but will not block the sign in process. Yes, that's what I'm saying. It will not block the process. Once the login process, sign in process is completed, I think it should show the error message. I'm hoping. It means failure in the subscriber cannot propagate the blocking the sign in process. But I'm a little bit confused. Will it show the error message at the end or not? I guess that's something that I actually would like to test. So we were looking at code unit. What was that code unit? System triggers.
2,000,003,000.
Oh, that's is there a name to that?
It's actually
Company triggers.
Yeah, company triggers.
Okay. And the event that we are looking at is on company open completed. Okay. And let's do that. Skip false and then skip false. All right, so here let's type the error exactly. You are not allowed to log in. Let's see. All right, let's publish this. F5. And once that get published, let's see what happens, because at this point, okay, what it says, oh, because I cannot get in. It did publish, but it doesn't allow me, I guess. Let me see what happened. Okay, sign out, sign in again, log in, company open. It does open the company, and it didn't show me that.
You just go to the last error message. Last error. No, on the
Latest error.
no, last question mark on the right.
Question mark. Oh, yeah.
On the top screen, yeah. Then go to, you know how it goes, help and support, and then last, yeah, view last, no error. Nope, nothing.
Nothing. And is that extension published? Maybe that didn't publish.
What was the name again? Company triggers.
It did publish.
So try to install it.
It will not install. That's what I'm trying to do, I guess. Let's see. Could not install because it errors out. You cannot install
error message. It doesn't show you error message.
It shows me error while I'm trying to publish it, right? That you cannot, because it's trying to do that. And okay, let's do this. You want to test it? Let's this is empty. Okay, not a problem. Let me create a table extension. And let's give it an ID, and let's say my extension that extends the company info. Okay, and then I add a boolean in field, and that's 50,000, and let's say block access boolean. Okay, and then it is content, and that's it. Okay, now what I need is also page extension. That's okay. I get 100 extension 1 extends company information. Okay. Why it's erroring out? Oh, there is already a page. Okay, 1. Okay. And here on the at last in my general tab, and I do add the field, which is STH block access. Okay.
Yeah, you need to add the record. Yeah, they should definitely update that snippet. It's confusing. Each time you add the record, this is nonsense.
If you use this, then it automatically comes.
Yeah,
the easy extension, right? Okay. So now if I say, or should I do it on user setup? That makes it easier, right? Instead of doing that, let's see. User setup. Okay. And here also on the user setup. Okay.
Well, this is not best practice. Everything is bundled in one file.
Yeah, nothing of this is a best practice. Right now, I'm just trying to understand the use of that. Okay, so now if I say, but does it? Yes, it does have the user, I guess, at this point. If user setup dot get user ID, then if user setup dot gh block access, then So it only edits out if that boolean is set on the user setup. Okay. Let's try to publish it now and see what happens. Because at this point it should publish. Oh, it seems it got published. Because right now there was no user or setup or not, neither there was a boolean set. Okay. Now what happens? And this is risky or not, I don't know. I set this up and then I can't go in.
Oh, this is going to explode, I'm quite certain.
Let's go into and change it to my company where it's easier. So if there is a problem, I can come back to the Cronus. Okay, so now if I go into user setup, okay, I define my setup, and then at the end I come here, and where is that field? Is this the field? No. Did I add it in the wrong area? Where it went?
Oh, we didn't add the application area.
Oh man.
God, you asked me, so Ralph. You just go.
I'm just learning things now. Okay.
Of course you are. Of course.
Okay, application area. See, I'm not a developer, guys. I'm just learning things.
Of course, not.
All right. So now it goes into my company, okay, because I haven't set that up. So let's go into user setup. Okay. And here it is. I did that, save that. Okay. Now let me change my company to be Cronus USA. It should come in. Okay. Now let's go back to my company. It does come here and it doesn't give me an error. But I need an error, right? That's the whole point of having the error. What happens?
Maybe you could try debugging the code. Publish with debugging. See what.
Yeah, let me go back to Cronus USA so that I can change it during debugging directly.
Yeah.
Because I did read about it. I'm not sure I did actually test it out, but now it failed. Okay. I'm not in that company. Why? Oh, designing. My setting, let's go back into that company. I'll have to do all this in debug. Can I change companies during debug? No, right?
Oh, you can. Of course you can. Why not? It's on the same tenants.
It did remove that setup, huh? Oh, that app is gone completely because it didn't got published. No, the record is here. I don't see that field. Oh, because I was trying to publish it. Okay. So I can't debug this, and I can only.
Yeah.
I'll have to do a little bit more reading into it. It seems. It is set here. How we can check that? Because the documentation that you send and the documentation that I was reading about in past is this. There are two things, right? One is the isolated event. Can raise an event in guarantee to invoke all the subscriber even if subscriber failed and continue execution. Extension should not be able to block critical processes such as signing or opening loan center. A failing extension should result in a degraded experience.
Yeah, which means it's not supposed to print to print anything to the user. It goes on. But with this logic, how would you be able to to detect that there was an error message?
Right, that's what I'm trying to understand. That This event is raised after the sign-in and company open has completed. Any subscriber to this event can fail, but will not block the sign-in process. Without this event, extension can break the sign-in process. Okay. Ongoing in raised during the sign-in when trying to open the company, it is of type isolated, which means that a failure in the subscriber cannot propagate to blocking the sign-in process. Okay, so maybe I'll have to do a little bit more research into it, but it seems it kind of doesn't even show that error message. Somehow, is it getting logged in telemetry? I guess that's my last guess.
Maybe we will get the latest error message on the latest errors.
No, it's not displaying anything.
We
No.
check that, nothing.
Means when we subscribe that event, and after that we haven't checked that. I think.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm just saying that when we subscribe that event, and after that we haven't checked that the latest error. So might be we will get some error on the latest error, and it will not show the error on the page while doing the sign in.
Yeah, maybe. Let me see if I see anything on the event log for this, which if you don't know, Freddy's BC container helper now also have this get BC container event log, where you can name the container and then click run. It will download the event log from there and will open it on your screen, which is, come on. Okay, it's got stuck on my other screen because it's loading still. But because that's what happens on kind of telemetry, more or less, that gets stored here. Here. I don't see anything happening here. There are some warnings, informations, there are some errors, but they are no one is showing that. Okay, weird. I'll have to search for it. How? And maybe I haven't seen. There is a session on that launch event where Waldo is talking about it. So maybe I'll watch that recording, and anybody else who is interested into looking at it, let's look at it and let's meet them next week and talk about it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because it's important to understand how all this operates, right? Okay, so we are top of our hour. We will continue about this going forward. Okay, so next week we'll have a look into isolated event against and then whatever is left for BC20.
Yeah, hang on, Saurav. In the Business Central launch event, I don't see isolated events, which is from Waldo's.
So let me use my knowledge on this.
Yeah, they've
If
got top
So
platform.
Waldo knowledge is this. Waldo session is this. What's new in VS Code and AL? And this talks about so many things. Some of them which we have already talked about, like incline profiler and things like that, performance thing. But Waldo is talking on this one for sure about the isolated event. What I saw was what's new in permission, and there was a brief intro about isolated event. But I'm going to watch this one, what's new in VS Code and AL, which I'm pretty sure will have in depth of isolated event.
Okay, this is where Waldo is talking about isolated events, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, in this, I guess that's where he talks about it. Okay. So thank you all. See you next week. Next Saturday.
Thank you, Saurav. Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Saurav.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.